The chimney fire didn't start with a roar. It started with a crack like a pine tree snapping under ice.
Charles, the wall. It's running with fire.
Out, out, now. Don't grab nothing. Just run.
The door burst open, and the family stumbled into the storm, barefoot in the snow, coats forgotten. Half a mile away, at the edge of his own land, Thomas saw the orange tongue reach for the sky and was already moving. He plunged through drifts, chest deep, the brown farm dog breaking a path ahead. By the time he reached the fire, the roof had fallen in, and the Crawfords knelt in the snow, watching it burn.
You can't stay here. Bring your family to my place, now.
His walls are packed with straw. We're walking into a tinderbox.
But Martha was already on her feet, and Charles said nothing. He only gathered Lily in his arms and followed the lantern through the storm. 3 months before the fire, Thomas stood in a clearing with an axe and a measuring stick, building something nobody else would try. He framed double walls with an 18-inch gap, a cavity meant to swallow straw bales whole.
Thomas, I found something in the Omaha Gazette. What's it say? Another land rush we can't afford.
Nebraska homesteader reports his straw bale house withstood fire and blizzard better than any log cabin in the county.
Straw? The same stuff I bed down the horse with? Listen, the secret is packing the bales so tight there is no air for flame, and the dead air pockets keep the cold out. If it stood through a Nebraska winter, it'll stand here. We've got enough straw for a palace.
That evening, they read the article twice more by lamplight, marking the passages that explained the science. By morning, Thomas was already measuring his first bale against the frame. The decision made. Word travels fast on a mountain. Charles Crawford rode up 2 days later, reining his horse hard at the edge of the clearing.
Thomas, you filling those walls with straw like a barn? It's insulation. Charles, packed tight. It holds heat and won't burn. Won't burn? Straw is kindling. One spark, and this place goes up like a haystack. There's no air in it, no air, no fire. The Nebraska article proved it. Nebraska. Some fool's experiment. You are building your own coffin, and you'll take Elizabeth with you. Mark my words. First good chimney fire. You won't have time to run.
He wheeled the horse and left without another word, the dust settling over the silent frame.
I am not building a coffin. I am building a home that will stand.
He turned back to the wall and drove another bale into the gap, his shoulders set against the doubt. For weeks he worked, packing straw so tightly that a knife blade fought to find air between the stalks. Elizabeth brought water and mixed clay for the outer plaster, sealing every seam against the wind that would come.
The Nebraska man wrote that his walls kept the cold so completely, ice never formed inside, even at 40 below. Then we'll be ready. This cabin will stand, Elizabeth. You'll see.
By late autumn, the roof beams were set, and the thick plastered walls rose solid and pale against the darkening pines. The first snowflakes drifted down on a windless afternoon, catching in the straw that still clung to Thomas's sleeves.
Look, Thomas, it's starting. We finished just in time. Charles will think this proves nothing. He'll wait for the nights that kill.
Outside, the snow thickened, tracing the uneven log corners of Charles's thin-walled cabin on the far ridge, invisible through the white. Thomas pulled the door shut, and the warmth of the straw walls closed around them, a quiet promise against the coming trial. By the second week of hard freeze, the inside of Charles's cabin wore a coat of white, frost on every log, the chinking brittle as glass.
Charles, I can see the children's breath inside the house. This isn't living. It's waiting to freeze.
I'll cut more wood. We just need to last till the thaw.
He spent every daylight hour swinging the axe, but the thin walls swallowed heat faster than the stove could make it.
2 cords in a month, and still cold. What kind of winter demands more than a man can cut?
Samuel, help me stuff these newspapers into the cracks. Every gap lets winter in.
Ma, why is it always cold? Even my doll is cold.
The woodpile shrank to a handful of sticks, and the stove burned through them before the kettle could sing.
Maybe Thomas was right about his straw, but I can't ask, not after what I said.
The night that followed was the coldest yet, and the Crawfords lay awake listening to the logs crack with the frost. Half a mile away, Thomas sat in his shirt sleeves, a book open in his lap, the fire barely stoked.
I haven't felt a draft since November. The straw truly holds the warmth like a blanket.
His woodpile beside the door stood taller than his own shoulders, barely diminished since the first heavy snow.
We've burned so little. Charles must be down to his last stick by now.
Inside, he held a candle to the plastered wall. The flame stood tall and still, no shiver anywhere along the seam.
It's as if the cold outside doesn't exist. We're living inside a summer dream, Thomas, and Charles called it a tinderbox. The only thing burning here is our stove, and it sips the wood like tea.
The dog stretched out on the hearth, tail thumping against the warm stone, not a cold spot in the whole house.
I should bring wood to Charles, but he would throw it back at me. Pride is a colder killer than winter.
Outside, the blizzard hammered the thick walls, but inside, only Elizabeth's knitting needles and the slow crack of the stove broke the silence. The knock came late, heavy and impatient, a man who would rather not be asking.
Charles, get inside before the wind strips you. You must have a hole in your roof. This place is too warm for one man. No hole, just 18 inches of packed straw. Come and see, still just straw. A lucky spell of mild weather proves nothing. Charles, your family is freezing. Take a cord of my wood. No man should have to see his children shiver. I don't need your charity. I've kept a fire alive through harder winters than this.
His voice was hard, but his eyes kept drifting to the packed walls, measuring something he could not yet admit.
The offer stands. For Martha and the children, not for you.
Charles said nothing. He pulled his collar high and stepped back into the storm, the door closing softly behind him. That night, the temperature dropped until the air itself seemed to splinter. Martha did not stop coughing.
Charles, the wood. There's only 3 sticks left in the box.
He opened the wood box. 3 sticks, each no thicker than a child's wrist, and the stove already cold to the touch.
Samuel, help me break apart that old bench. We'll burn the legs if we have to.
I am so cold, Papa. My feet feel like stones.
The bench burned for an hour, then the stool, then a crate. Each piece of furniture gave them minutes, not warmth.
We'll freeze by morning. Thomas was right, and I am too stubborn to save my own children.
Charles, please, go to Thomas. For the children, pride can't keep them warm.
I won't beg, not from him.
He sat against the wall through the long darkness, listening to his family's shallow breathing, waiting for the first crack of timber or his own breaking. Sometime before dawn, the chimney gave way, a splintering sound that was not the frost cracking, but the fire itself breaking free.
Charles, the ceiling is alight.
Martha, the children, out the door. Now, Samuel, take Lily.
He kicked the door open and shoved Lily into Martha's arms before the smoke could swallow them whole. The roof was already wearing a mantle of flame, and the snow around the cabin turned hard and brittle under the heat.
Fire on the ridge. Jess with me?
He didn't bother with a coat, just seized the lantern, and the dog was already breaking trail through the drifts.
Charles, Martha, are you all out?
My own chimney. The fire I warned him about has come for us.
They started the trudge through the drifts, the fire painting their shadows across the snow, a brittle promise Thomas intended to keep. They reached the cabin as the first gray light of dawn leaked through the storm. Elizabeth had the door open before they crested the last drift.
Dear heaven, Martha, children, inside, quickly.
She pulled them into the warmth, and the sudden change in air made Martha gasp, as if she had forgotten what heat felt like.
Elizabeth, we have nothing. Everything is gone.
Charles stood just inside the door, snow melting on his shoulders, unable to lift his eyes from the floor. The dog nosed Lily's hand, and the child managed a small, shivering laugh, her first sound since the fire, through the frost-rimmed window. The orange glow of the burning cabin still pulsed on the distant ridge, a wound in the darkness.
I told him this place was a tinderbox. Now my own house is ashes and his stands.
Thomas stoked the stove with 2 small logs, and the thick walls held the warmth so completely that no one shivered an hour later. Charles finally moved to the window, pressing his palm against the plastered straw, and did not speak. Morning came silent and gray, the storm spent. Charles woke to find his wife and children sleeping peacefully, their breath soft and even.
Lily's lips are not blue. Martha's cough has stopped. How is this possible, with so little firewood?
He rose and walked to the wall, running his hand along the plaster. No cold seeped through, no draft.
You want to see what's inside? There's a hatch here for checking.
Thomas slid the panel aside. Inside the cavity, golden stalks pressed together like a single solid block.
It's so tight, you couldn't push a needle through. No air, Charles. That's what keeps it from burning and what keeps the cold out. He's been telling me this since the frame went up. I heard nothing but a chimney fire at my place. The heat that close to wood.
Thomas didn't answer right away. He only raised his hand and pressed it flat against the straw, as if the wall itself was argument enough. That evening, Martha and Elizabeth worked side by side at the stove, 2 women shaping a meal out of shared flour and shared gratitude. Charles sat at the table, watching his children play with the dog, his plate untouched.
Thomas, I have to know, why didn't the straw catch? My chimney was spitting embers, because fire needs air, the way a lung needs breath. Your chimney starved for air and choked on its own heat, but my walls were wood. They should have held. Instead, the fire ran through them like a river. Wood has air pockets too, Charles. And your logs were thin. This straw is packed so tight, it suffocates flame before it can grow. So the thing I called a fire trap is the one that refuses to burn.
He didn't say it aloud, but the way he looked at the walls after that changed, not as a stranger assessing risk, but as a man beginning to trust. The next morning, Lily and Sam built a fort out of straw bales in the barn, and Charles did not stop them. That night, the 2 families ate together, and for the first time, Charles cleared his plate. Later, when the fire had burned low and the children were asleep, Charles sat across from Thomas, a cup of untouched tea between them.
I was wrong, Thomas. From the day I saw you stacking straw, I was wrong. You were trying to protect your family. I never held that against you. I called it kindling. I called you a fool, and it was my own house that burned. Your family is warm tonight. That's the only thing that ever mattered.
He extended his hand, and Charles took it, not like a debtor accepting charity, but like a neighbor meeting on level ground.
When the spring comes, I want to rebuild, and I want to build it right this time. We'll talk about that when the ground softens. For now, rest.
Charles nodded, and something behind his eyes that had been hard for months finally let go. The fire crackled, the walls held their warmth, and for a long while neither man spoke. The stillness itself was apology accepted. By late February, the blizzards still scraped against the thick straw walls without finding a single seam.
Charles, look at this pile. 6 people under this roof, and barely a dent since October.
I remember those mornings, swinging the axe until my shoulders burned and still the children shivered.
Elizabeth, I haven't felt truly warm in 6 winters. This house is something else.
Spring will come early, I think. The robins are returning.
I can hear the wind, but I can't feel it. That's the difference.
That's because the wind hasn't found a way in, and it never will.
This is all we've burned since October. 2 stacks, not 2 cords. All my life, I believed a home had to be a fortress of logs. Now I see a fortress is measured by its stillness.
And as the icicles began to drip, Charles started measuring the distance between his new understanding and the foundation he would lay in spring. One evening, With the first green shoots pressing through the snow, Elizabeth placed a folded newspaper on the supper table.
Charles, there's something you should see. This is where it started.
The headline read, "Nebraska Farmer Builds Fireproof Straw House."
Nebraska. Some fool's experiment. That's what I said. This is the article you read? The one you tried to tell me about?
Elizabeth found it in the Omaha Gazette last autumn. We built these walls according to that man's method.
And I called it a coffin. I mocked you for trusting it.
He looked down at the print, the words that had saved his life blurring before him.
You weren't wrong that day, Charles. You were just looking at a different kind of wall.
And in the silence that followed, the last piece of Charles's old certainty fell away, replaced by the article that had been right all along.
Then I'll build it again, the same way. Straw bales, double walls, not a gap for the wind. We'll start tomorrow. I saved all my jigs and the measuring stick we used. Show me the pressure you use. I want to pack it so tight a flame won't find a breath. We've got 200 bales in the barn, dry as bone. That's enough for a home that'll laugh at winter. For the first time, I am not scared of October. I am counting the days.
They paced the burned ground that afternoon, marking a new foundation with the same stick Thomas had used for his own cabin.
Martha and I will lime wash the plaster when it's up. This time, the women will sign the walls too.
We'll need lime and clay. Thomas, you said the plaster seals the straw from fire and frost.
By sundown, they had loaded the first wagon of bales and parked it beside the new stakes, a golden promise against the retreating snow. Charles looked at the bales stacked where his house had fallen, and for the first time since the fire, he felt the thaw start inside him. The next morning, hammers rang across the clearing, and the first uprights of Charles's new cabin rose against a pale spring sky.
Keep the corners plumb, and the bales will lock together like bricks. Hand me another bale. I want to feel the weight.
I can carry the small ones, Pa. I want to help.
By midday, the frame had swallowed 24 bales, and the women arrived with a pot of stew and a loaf of fresh bread.
Eat before it cools. This is the first meal cooked for a home that will actually stay warm.
By week's end, we'll have the roof on. Then the plaster. Then you'll know what a real wall feels like.
They worked until the light bled out of the sky, and by the following Saturday, the roof beams sat square on the thick straw walls.
In all my years, I never thought a house could feel alive this fast.
And the walls stood thick and golden, waiting only for the lime wash that would bind the two families' labor into a shelter no winter could breach. The lime wash went on in a single morning, and by noon, Charles's cabin stood complete, a twin to Thomas's, thick-walled and ready.
It feels different inside. Still, safe, that's the straw. It doesn't breathe the way logs do. Elizabeth, if you hadn't found that article, we'd still be shivering in a tent.
The Nebraska farmer found it first. You are the one who had the courage to change your mind.
He turned in a slow circle, taking in the walls, the roof, the light falling through the new window.
I was wrong, and you were right. I said it once, but I need to say it here, in this house. This house is yours, Charles, built by your own hands.
They shook hands, and this time no shadow fell between them. Just two men who had learned the same lesson on opposite sides of winter. Outside, the two cabins stood side by side, golden straw stacked between them, the snow retreating into the far peaks. That Sunday, the families invited the valley neighbors to see the new cabin, and a dozen wagons lined the lane by midday.
I called this kind of wall a fire trap. I told Thomas he would burn alive. Then my own chimney caught. And these walls, the ones I mocked, kept my children warm all winter. Don't take my word. Touch the straw yourself. You'll find it packed so tight a flame can't breathe.
One by one, the farmers pressed their palms against the golden stalks, and their skepticism crumbled into quiet surprise.
A Nebraska farmer wrote the article that started all this. Elizabeth found it, and Thomas had the courage to build. The method belongs to anyone who wants to keep their family warm. We'll help the next man build one.
By sundown, 3 farmers had written down the bale dimensions, and the Crawfords' tragedy had become the valley's new beginning. The children built another straw fort that evening, and this time Lily used a scrap of the Nebraska newspaper as a flag, and between the 2 cabins, the golden stack of bales grew larger that spring. Not just a wall, but a frontier promise shared freely. By midsummer, the patch between the 2 cabins had turned green, and the straw stack had become a meeting place, a landmark in the valley.
Last year, this ground was frozen solid. Now, look at it.
The children haven't coughed in months. I'd forgotten what that sounded like.
The article said a bale house could last a century. I think we've proven it can last at least 1 winter. It lasted the winter that broke men. That's proof enough for me.
The dog Jess chased Lily through the bales, and Sam showed the neighbor boys how to tie a bale knot.
To the Nebraska farmer we never met.
And to Elizabeth, who read the right words at the right time.
They drank, and the sun set behind the 2 straw cabins, identical in their thick, warm silence. The fire trap had become the fortress, and the coldest winter hadn't gotten through. In the years that followed, new families arrived in the valley, and the first thing they asked about was the golden straw between the 2 cabins. Winter howled back every year, but the straw walls gave it no crack to enter. Inside, the families slept without coughs. The children grew tall, and the newspaper hung framed on both mantels. The Nebraska farmer's idea spread. Soon, every new cabin in the valley rose with double walls and golden stuffing. Spring thawed the ground, and the children who had once shivered built toy forts from spare bales in the mud. Charles never forgot the cold, but he stopped fearing it. The fire that took his old home had given him a better one, and Thomas, walking between the 2 homes, knew the true fortress wasn't the straw, it was the neighbor willing to learn. The bales themselves, packed tight and silent, stood as a monument to the moment pride stepped aside for wisdom. On the coldest nights, the wind screamed across the ridge, but inside, the stillness held, and the candle never flickered. They called it a fire trap, but the fire never came, only the warmth. And so the valley forgot the name for doubting, and remembered only the golden walls that had stood. No monument was raised, no plaque was nailed. The walls themselves were the story, and every winter that followed, when the wind rattled the pines, the families inside slept without a tremor. The newspaper, yellowed and brittle, passed from hand to hand when new families arrived, a relic of the Nebraska harvest that saved a valley. No one ever again called straw a fire trap. They called it what it was, the wall that winter could not breach. The lesson lived long after the men who built the cabins. A house is not measured by its timber, but by its stillness. When the last patch of snow melted, the children ran between the cabins, barefoot and laughing, and the straw stood golden in the sun. And every evening, smoke rose from 2 chimneys, twin lines against the mountain sky, a quiet rebuttal to all who had called it kindling. They called his straw-stuffed walls a fire trap. But the coldest winter couldn't get through, and the warmth remained.